Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lightning Talks. This is the kickoff episode for our 6th season, and we're so glad you're here with us. We are coming to you live from the Seattle Aquarium on the shores of Puget Sound in the traditional and contemporary territories of the Coast Salish people. We have speakers joining us from across the United States and as far away as the Solomon Islands, and we have viewers signed up from 6 continents. So wherever you may be today, whatever time of day or night it is, thank you for being here with us. My name is Nora Nickham. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the VP of Conservation Programs and Partnerships here at the Seattle Aquarium. And tonight, our Lightning Talks episode is all about sea turtles. As you learned in the trivia in the chat, there are 7 species of sea turtles. 6 of them can be found here in Washington waters, or not Washington, US waters. And they take amazing journeys, many of them, usually swimming, but as we will learn tonight, some of them actually take journeys flying with the help of humans. So that'll be an exciting story to learn about later. First, I wanted to introduce one particularly special sea turtle that I learned about. Her name is Yoshi, and she was found as a juvenile with an injured shell and brought to the Two Oceans Aquarium in Cape Town, South Africa. And after several years of growing big and strong and being rehabilitated and being ready to reproduce, she was released into the open ocean. Now, no one knew where she had come from or where she might swim, so they outfitted her with a satellite tracking tag and tracked her closely. And it turns out that over the course of just over 2 years, she swam more than 25,000 miles. And she ended up off the shores of Australia. And interestingly, she helped lead scientists to a loggerhead foraging area that was not previously known. So that was very exciting. I hope you will check out those books about Yoshi with curious kids in your life. And now to jump into more information about Lightning Talks, let's talk about how it's going to work this evening. We have 5 speakers, and they each have 5 minutes and not 1 minute more to share something that they're excited to share. They're going to get warning lights to tell them how they're doing with that time. So there's a light when they have 1 minute left, another light when they have 30 seconds left, and another light when they've reached their 5 minutes. And if they keep going, they're going to get this. Now, I hope you will join me in applauding anyone who does bring the lightning strike, because that is what gives this show its name. So we always hope that happens at least once. Along the way, I'm sure you will have lots of questions, so you can put those in the chat, or you can scan the QR code that you see here on the screen that will come up periodically. We will be bringing all of our speakers back for Q&A at the end, and we will be drawing on your questions, so please keep those coming. Now, if you're inspired by this show to support the Seattle Aquarium and help us achieve our mission of inspiring conservation of the marine environment, we hope you'll consider a donation. That helps us put on talks like Lightning Talks. It also helps us in our work doing research and rehabilitating animals like sea turtles, which you'll learn more about this evening. So without further ado, I would love to dive into our sea turtle episode and bring up our first speaker. We have Dr. Heather Harris. She is a wildlife veterinarian who specializes in marine ecosystem health, and we're going to change the camera to have Heather up there. And preventive medicine. We were honored to recently give Heather the 2025 Seattle Aquarium Conservation Research Award. She leads research to investigate global health threats to sea turtles and marine mammals, and she provides veterinary support for field work, stranding response, and oiled wildlife care. And tonight we're going to hear from her about leatherbacks. Heather, are you ready to kick us off?
I'm ready.
Your slides look great.
All right. Thanks everyone for being here. Did you know that we have leatherback turtles out here along our coast? The turtles that we see are actually coming from the Western Pacific. So they're nesting in Papua Barat, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and the Solomon Islands. And a subset of these turtles swim across the Pacific Ocean to come forage seasonally on dense aggregations of jellies off our coast. Like you see in this photo, there's a sea nettle trailing out of this turtle's mouth. The Western Pacific leatherbacks are critically endangered and unfortunately have declined 80% over the last 30 years, largely as a result of fisheries interactions and egg harvest. They are the California State Marine Reptile, and they've also been recognized in the NOAA Species in the Spotlight program, which highlights species that are at high risk of extinction. So why do we care about body condition? It might surprise you if you look at these two turtles. They look pretty different, but these are actually both adult females that are healthy. But the turtle on the left is a nesting female. She's been fasting for several months at the end of her nesting season. And the turtle on the right is the fattest forager that we've ever captured in California. She weighed about 1,300 pounds. So these amazing animals develop this thick peripheral fat layer, sort of like the blubber of marine mammals. And this allows them to thrive in cold, temperate water, unlike their sort of tropical hardshell cousins. So I think of them sort of as a hybrid between a hardshell turtle and an elephant seal. The skin-covered carapace is made up of a dense network of bones that fit together like puzzle pieces. And under that is a big blubber layer. And above that are these cartilaginous ridges, which can expand and contract kind of like a pleated accordion as they gain and lose their fat reserves. So we suspect that on foraging grounds, these turtles need to reach a certain nutritional threshold that signals to them the timing of remigration back to the nesting beach. So body condition can tell us about the health of these turtles and their foraging success, and it can also tell us about larger scale changes in the marine environment that may impact things like prey availability. Looking for leatherbacks at sea is really like looking for a needle in a haystack. We have an aerial team that has a lot of expertise identifying these animals from a great height, and they are communicating directly with our boat team. And we have a specialized boat here with a big breakaway hoop net and a bow bridge that where they stand, and this ramp comes down and we can pull the turtles on board with a winch system. So once on board, the turtles receive a physical exam, they get samples collected for health assessment, and they get tags, sort of like taking your pet to the vet. And you can see this turtle is sitting on this big platform, which is a scale. It's actually made for zoo animals and it's waterproof. And so we are able to collect weight data via Bluetooth to a cell phone or a tablet, so we can safely weigh these giant animals. And interestingly, the weight and length data, we can use almost like the body mass index for people to look at a basic metric of body condition. We've also developed a species-specific body condition scoring system. So that means that we use a lot of these external physical features to score turtles. So we're looking at the prominence of the dorsal ridges, we're looking at the concavity of the neck, and the roundness of the shoulders, and using these features to score turtles from 1 to 5, which is a scale from emaciated to robust. We can also directly measure the fat layer and lipids in the blood by putting an ultrasound on the turtle. We can actually measure the fat layer, which is this dark band that's underneath the epidermis and dermis, and you can see the bright white line of the underlying muscle fascia. You can also see these blood samples here. It look kind of like a strawberry milkshake, and that is lipemia. That's lipids in the blood. So when they're foraging, they develop lipemia. So finally, I just want to share this video of releasing a leatherback, and we're going to use those health data in conjunction with the tagging data so we can see whether indeed body condition is associated with their remigration back to the nesting beach. There she goes. Thanks so much.
That was wonderful, Heather. Thank you so much. It's fun to see the departure video at the end. I'm wondering, can you just tell us a little bit more about what you hope to learn from this research and how we can use that information to help protect sea turtles?
Sure. I think that understanding the health of the individual turtles that we are sampling in the water is really important, because they're really a window into the health of the population. So as this population is declining, all the data that we can get from each of these individual turtles is really critical. It tells us about health threats to the populations off our coast, and hopefully it will help us manage this population better.
Great, thank you. Well, we're excited to welcome you back for Q&A later in this episode. So I invite everyone to add their questions for you to the chat or use the QR code. And in the meantime, we're going to bring up our next speaker on the Lightning Talk stage, Dr. Shawn Larson, my wonderful colleague. Shawn has worked at the Seattle Aquarium for 31 years, leading research and rehabilitation activities. And since she started in 1995, she has successfully rehabilitated 12 sea turtles. So we are going to get to hear now what that takes.
Thanks, Nora. I'm going to talk about sea turtle work at the Seattle Aquarium. And we don't have sea turtles in our habitat, so why do we do sea turtle conservation? Well, all 6 species of sea turtles in the United States waters are protected under the Endangered Species Act. Loggerheads, green turtles, and olive ridleys are listed as threatened. And hawksbill, Kemp ridleys, and leatherbacks, as Heather just talked about, are listed as endangered. So what about sea turtles in Washington waters? Well, they aren't native residents, but they do visit and they do strand here. So wait a minute, sea turtles don't live in Washington waters. And why are they here? This is a water temperature map of the west coast of the United States and Canada. And the cooler colors, the blues and the purples, indicate colder waters, but then the greens and the yellows and the oranges indicate warmer waters. And so it's thought that sea turtles do come and forage off of our coast in these warmer waters. And sometimes they, due to wave action, wind, storms, we don't really know what, they may find themselves into the colder nearshore waters. And at this point, they become what's called cold stunned. And they basically lose many of their bodily functions. So they're not able to move effectively. They're not able to digest. And they basically become like driftwood, flotsam and jetsam. And they're drifting around in the current. And if they're lucky, the current will take them and strand them on a local Washington beach. And then the Seattle Aquarium will get a call. As we are one of 2 permitted facilities to rehabilitate sea turtles in Washington. And since 1981, we have rehabilitated 29 cold shock sea turtles from intake. When they come to us at first, they are very lethargic, sometimes almost dead. Sometimes we have to use an ultrasound just to see if we can detect a heartbeat. And then fast forward to full rehabilitation and release, which takes several months and several partners. Here's a release of one of the cold shock sea turtles that we rehabilitated being released off of the coast of Southern California with our partner, SeaWorld California. So this is a graph of the different species that we have successfully rehabilitated over the years. We've rehabilitated and released 12 cold shock green sea turtles, 12 olive ridleys, 3 loggerheads, and 2 hawksbills. And what does it look like? Well, it really takes a team. Almost the whole aquarium gets involved. But initially, the sea turtles come in. They're very lethargic. Like I said, sometimes they're barely alive. And they need initial critical care by our veterinary staff. And our veterinary staff does a great job with treating them initially, treating any wounds, giving them fluids, testing their blood, just seeing what's going on. Because these animals, we don't know how long they were drifting in the cold waters of the North Pacific, or how long they've eaten or anything like that. So they come in very lethargic and usually in pretty poor body condition. And then after that, it takes 24 hours of experienced staff, rehabilitation staff, to care for them. We spend the night, we monitor their vital signs. We sometimes have to breathe for them. And then if they get through that initial critical stabilization, we get them swimming as soon as possible, because it's much easier for sea turtles to breathe in the water than when they're in dry land. And when they're in dry holding, we put soft foam underneath them to make it easier for them to expand in their chest and breathe. And then eventually they'll go into longer term care where they're swimming and eating, but they still need to gain weight. They may need to heal from their injuries, or they may have diseases. And all of this takes multiple different departments: animal care, conservation programs and partnerships, facilities, maintenance. The whole aquarium is involved. And we have turtle-specific supplies, systems, food, vitamins, pools. We have volunteers help us once they're stable. And then once the animal is ready to fly to Southern California with our partner, SeaWorld San Diego, we will contact Turtles Fly 2 that will do the transport. And then we'll also contact Wildlife Computers, because for each sea turtle we rehab, we try and place a satellite tag tracker on them so that we can track their movements once they're released. So it really takes many hours, many staff, all coordinated, many partners, but it's a really positive experience when everything goes well. And the ultimate goal is to return them to the wild so they can be part of the sea turtle population and make more sea turtles. As I said, all of the sea turtles in U.S. I did it.
Shawn, you got the lightning. Thank you. Lightning strikes. Thank you, Shawn. Can you maybe bring us in to that facility where there's a cold stunned sea turtle that has just arrived? As you're doing all of those things to try and stabilize it, what are some things that you need to be careful of, and how soon do you get a sense of whether it's making progress in the right direction?
Yeah, so like I said, we don't know how long these turtles have been in the cold Washington waters where their bodily functions don't do well. And so it's really essential that we don't warm them too quickly. And so we monitor their temperature. We have them in a cold room or room temp or ambient temperature outside, and then slowly warm the temperature. It takes several days to get them back up to, the high 60s to low 70s. And in that way, we're not further shocking their systems by taking them from being super cold for a long time to being right back up to normal sea turtle body temperature, which is going to be in the high 60s to low 70s for most species. So we're very careful about that. And as long as the turtles stay alive and we can get them swimming relatively soon and moving around, once we get them to that point in about a week, we know that we're probably going to be successful, unless their wounds are too can't be healed, or if they have too many diseases. But once we get them through the first week, we're good to go. And then it's just the longer term care and making sure that everybody's involved. All of our partners are on board.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm sure you want the turtles to get better as quickly as possible, but being patient and methodical is really important to make sure they do well.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Shawn. We'll bring you back soon for our Q&A session. And in the meantime, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Ken Andrews. He's the Vice President of Turtles Fly 2. So this is where those flying turtles come in. And Shawn also mentioned partnering with Turtles Fly 2 for the next step with rehabilitated turtles. Ken is a professional pilot with 26 years of experience and more than a decade advancing the organization's mission to rescue endangered sea turtles and other wildlife. So he's flown numerous missions, and he leads international efforts that bring together pilots, scientists, and conservation partners around the world. So take it away, Ken.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much, Nora. I appreciate that. And a big thank you to Shawn for getting that lightning out of the way, so I'm not the first one to do it. Ken Andrews with Turtles Fly 2, Vice President and pilot, as Nora had mentioned. Being a pilot and getting involved in a mission like this, I never would have thought that I would get to know as much about sea turtles as I do today, and just how important they are, to our environment and to our world. So at Turtles Fly 2, we like to say that we're two endangered species saving each other. And of course, we're talking about sea turtles, so we know that sea turtles is one of those species, but the other one is aviation, and general aviation in particular. Aviation has been it's traditionally a very hard field to get into. It's very expensive with all of the distractions that people have today in their lives. we see less and less people taking flight training. So general aviation is endangered, and so are our sea turtles. And it's wonderful that we can take part in something like this that brings everything to get everybody together and brings these two very important things together. Now, another thing I like to mention is how a mission like this and working with sea turtles in aviation gets everybody involved. And that's my son there, Christopher, who started working with Turtles Fly 2 when he was 4. But we bring people from all around the country, all different kinds of aircraft, all kinds of different backgrounds. There's my son now, 10 years later, still involved, moving these sea turtles all around the world. It's just an incredible mission that's brought so many people together. Now, we started off a few minutes ago talking about cold stun, and cold stun is something that I had never thought that I would know about until, obviously until now. But essentially the cold stun is also an issue that we have on the East Coast. And so Turtles Fly 2 has spent a lot of time dealing with cold stun issues on the East Coast. So that star I've got down there in the Gulf is highlighting the primary area where the Kemp's Ridley. Kemp's Ridley is a subtropic sea turtle. It should be in warm waters. Well, we've got this issue where the Gulf of Maine is warming very quickly, and there's a very nice warm water current that goes up the east coast of the United States. And so what ends up happening is we get these Kemp's Ridley that, spend all summer making their way all the way up into New England, where it's nice and warm, lots of great places to forage. They get on the north side of Cape Cod, and they get trapped, of course. Now, we all hear the stories about how the weather changes really fast. It's getting cold. These surprise cold snaps that come. Well, the same thing happens to our sea turtle friends that are smart. They try to go south, but they get landlocked. So essentially what happens is their reptiles, their body temperature drops and drops until the point they just can't do anything anymore. And then we work with volunteers all along the coast that are out 24 hours a day bringing these turtles in. And as Shawn mentioned, it's amazing how ill some of these turtles are. Literally, you can wait several minutes to get one heartbeat or one breath to even tell if that turtle's alive. These turtles get checked in. They all see veterinarian care. And then those that can be saved, which hopefully is a big number, all go into tanks where we slowly raise their temperatures. Now, one of the issues that we have is that these facilities can only handle so many turtles. All right. So they've got to be moved to other facilities all around the country for rehabilitation because they just can't handle it all up in New England. And so that's where we come in. So moving the turtles in aircraft is very important because speed equals survival. Ground transport between these facilities, because they can be thousands of miles apart, can be very difficult. And another issue is that sea turtles generally should only be out of the water for no more than 24 hours. And on top of that, they're already sick to begin with. So by using the aircraft, we take days of travel down to hours. It reduces the mortality and it increases the re-release rates. And so like we like to say, the happier the turtle is, the better the outcome. As far as general aviation goes, we've flown over 450, or we have 450 plus pilots in our ranks. They're all volunteer pilots. It's a way that aviation can give back. And over the years, we've now saved 5,000 plus sea turtles. Absolutely incredible. We've flown multiple species as large as manatees, sea otters, of course, the Kemp's Ridleys, and many other species of sea turtles. And we've got a nationwide network that we work with. And we've even moved penguins like I show here. So it's pretty amazing that we do that. We don't charge any of the facilities for that, but it's also 100% donation based. If you'd like to know a little bit about some cool missions we've done, some really interesting things, I look up Tally the sea turtle. You can Google this, Tally sea turtle. I put that on the bottom, but this is a sea turtle that we moved from the UK all the way back to Houston 2 years ago. So I encourage you to take a look into that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken, for you and all the important work that your colleagues do. I'm wondering if you mentioned Tally. I'm wondering if Tally was the hardest mission you've ever flown, the most complicated, or if you have a story of one that was particularly involved you can share with us.
Yeah, no, Tally absolutely was the most difficult mission. So Tally was, I believe at the time, one of only 2 or 3 Kemp's Ridleys that have ever washed ashore in the UK. So, they don't see very many sea turtles to begin with just because the waters are so cold. But the story with Tally is just incredible, that a dog walker walked past the turtle, thought the turtle was dead, went home, told his wife, hey, I saw a sea turtle. And she said, well, did you check it? And well, it was, of course it was dead. Well, it wasn't. So Tally was rehabilitated over a period of 2 to 3 years. But it took us 2 years of paperwork and mission planning, including getting the Royal Air Force involved to get that turtle back. It's an incredible story in just the number of people that came together globally to get that one sea turtle back to Houston is just incredible. It's a great story.
Wow. Yes. Well, I encourage everyone to look up more info. That's a good teaser. So I hope everyone will put questions for Ken in the chat or use the QR code that will pop up on the screen. And Ken will welcome you back again shortly for our discussion. And in the meantime, I would love to bring up Madlyn Ero. Madlyn is a conservation leader from the Solomon Islands and is partnerships program manager for the Nature Conservancy. She focuses on community engagement. Madlyn is a champion of gender equity in conservation, empowering women to take active roles in managing natural resources and protecting endangered species like the Western Pacific leatherback turtle. So you ready, Madlyn?
Yes, I am.
Take it away.
Thank you. So I'm going to transport you far from your homes across the Pacific Ocean to the beautiful black sand beaches of Solomon Islands in a small community called Haivo. So Haivo is one of the most important nesting sites of the critically endangered Western Pacific population of leatherbacks. Heather was talking about that in the first speaker. So to tell the story, I'll be sharing a story of two women. So the first woman is called Solo. She is a 6 feet long half-ton mother leatherback. In November 2022, along with 9 others, a satellite tracker was attached to their backs to understand their migration patterns and behaviors. So Solo nested 5 times on Haivo Beach over 2 months, and then she left the waters where she would not return for the next 2 years. So these satellite trackers gave the scientists a valuable wealth of information. And so we found out that Solo swam approximately 7 kilometers per hour. And on the journey, she met a five category cyclone of Vanuatu, and she rode on the wind and the waves for a few days until the cyclone passed, and then she came back on track. After months, she reached the waters of Australia and New Zealand, where she fed on the jellyfish in the cold waters there. At that place, she is vulnerable to be captured by, accidentally captured by industrial fisheries there. But the data which Solo and her sisters have provided are now guiding the fisheries fleet to avoid such occurrence. One of Solo's sisters, called Okesisakolo, broke the previous world record of the deepest diving turtle. She dove down to 4,500 feet on a single breath. And for context, that's deeper than the capabilities of the US Navy submarines. So from one incredible woman to another, this is Anita. Anita is a ranger at Haivo. Anita has helped to put the satellite track on Solo. This is one of the many duties that Anita has to do. She patrols the beach at night to make sure that she catches the mother turtle when it comes up. And it is critical because this will protect the mothers and the nest from poachers. If the mother turtle the egg below the high water mark level, Anita makes sure to relocate the eggs to a safe and a higher place. And she will make sure that the hatchery, the place is safe from predators and clean, so that when it's time for hatch, Anita will be there as well. Anita will be there as well to make sure that the turtles make it safely to the sea. So these women, they support each other. Without Solo and her sisters, Anita and her female colleagues here, they have very few opportunities for meaningful employment and reliable income in the remoteness of the community which they live in. And without Anita and her colleagues, Solo and the Western Pacific leatherback face a very uncertain future and may disappear from the Pacific within decades. And so every year, the rangers of Haibo, they protect thousands of hatchling turtles that would otherwise been lost to predators, poachers, or the rising seas. And they've produced scientific data to inform fisheries management across the entire Pacific. And after 13 years of effort and proven conservation success, the Haibo community continued to provide a beacon of hope for this particular species, to make sure that the species does not go into extinction. So I think that's the story I want to share about these two women, Tagio Farah, and yes, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Madlyn. Wow, you really brought home the dangers that a sea turtle can face on its journeys. Cyclones and bycatch risk and predators and egg poaching. But it's great that there's so much work being done by community members like Anita and organizations like the Nature Conservancy to help reduce those risks wherever possible. So I wanted to harken back to the tracking map that you showed. There were a lot of lines going across the map there, and there were a few that went kind of up in another direction. Can you tell us what we know about those turtles?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I would explain, but Anita and the Solo and the 9 turtles we tracked, they went south. We tagged those in the end of the year, in November. But those turtles going up north, we tagged those in the middle of the year. So those are mid-year nesters. And we found out that one of them swam across and foraged off California. California waters, and just wanted to share that that's how the conservation work started in Haibo. One scientist tagged the turtle in California, I think some years back in 1990, and then the turtle nests at Haibo, so that's how the conservation work in Haibo started. Thanks.
Wonderful. Oh, so interesting. Okay, well, we'll welcome you back soon, Madlyn, and I hope everyone's putting plenty of questions in the chat for you and our other speakers. And I am thrilled to bring up our final speaker for this evening, Dr. Amy Bonka. So Amy is the Chief Conservation Officer at Sea Turtle Inc., where she leads efforts to conserve and rehabilitate sea turtles. She's also expanding Sea Turtle Inc.'s research program, and she was recently inducted as a fellow of the Explorers Club. So we are going to get to hear from her about nesting sea turtles, and I think see some pretty adorable little baby sea turtles. So we're ready. Take it away, Amy.
Awesome. Thank you, Nora. And I'm so excited to be here tonight, guys. And we're going to switch a little bit from what we've seen for the past couple with the largest sea turtle with the leatherbacks. We're going to start talking about the smallest of our sea turtles, the Kemp's Ridley. So our Kemp's Ridleys are not only the smallest and most critically endangered of all our sea turtles, but they're also really unique in that they're daytime nesters. None of our other sea turtles nest in the daytime. So we lovingly refer to these as our 9 to 5 girlies, since they're coming ashore during the daytime to lay those nests. So our team's going to be out there working to find those nests, to help protect those nests, and when the females are on shore, take some critical data around those nesting females. So we'll be taking some length and width measurements. We'll check them for tags. We will apply tags if they don't have any. So that includes a small little microchip tag, a pit tag, like what you put in your dog or your cat. In fact, the exact same kind we use. I've actually used one of those readers to scan my cat and have her little microchip number pop up. And then we'll provide those tags if they don't have one. And that tells us a lot of data about our Kemp's Ridleys, about how often they're nesting on our beaches with us, how long between nesting events. So how many, either is it every year, every other year? And it helps provide data about the population as a whole, which is really critical to help inform some of those conservation measures around those populations, because our Kemp's Ridleys are living predominantly in the Gulf. So we're out there taking these measurements and working to protect our turtles and protect our nests. But as you can imagine, what might happen on a nesting beach in the daytime is it's also a public beach, and people love to come to the beach during the day, just like our nesting turtles. And so we get some really great opportunities on our beaches here in Texas to interact with the public and talk to people about our nesting sea turtles. It also provides an opportunity for people to get to see a turtle in the wild that they may never have seen before. So as you can see in some of these examples, they get to see a turtle come out of the ocean right where they're out enjoying their beach day. And we get to talk about what the turtle's doing, why she's laying a nest, and how they can safely watch her and also help out turtles after they leave the beach. And once the turtle is back in the water, she leaves a few clues behind, but not too many of them. So our daytime nesters, they're the smallest of our sea turtles, and they like to nest on windy days. So the evidence they leave behind can blow out really quickly. So we're often out here playing hide and seek. So here's an example of a turtle track, and it's actually right here at the arrow. However, you can drive on our beaches in Texas, which means sometimes we're trying to determine, is that a turtle track, like this one right here, or is it a vehicle track, like the one right behind it? And so we're following these clues to try to find the nest. And sometimes they leave almost nothing behind. So there's actually a nest here in this picture, even though it looks like a lot of blank sand. If we look really closely at this area where there's a little bit of broken vegetation, so there's a little bit of leaves, a little broken roots here and there, and actually the nest is right below that right here. And so if you look at this, you see that there's really no other evidence on this beach besides this little bit of broken vegetation. That indentation in the sand is actually my footprints from walking and looking for these clues. But once we find that nest, we're able to protect it. And about a month and a half later, we see something like this, which is where those baby sea turtles are on the surface of the sands, and we're able to collect them and protect them. We're going to get everything out of the sand that went into the sand, so eggshells like you see here, any unhatched eggs maybe, or any hatchlings that didn't make it to the surface. Then we're going to take some quick measurements. We're going to take a little length and width and a weight of some of those baby turtles, and then we'll take them down the beach and release them so that they can start their journey out into the ocean. Now, oftentimes this happens overnight, but sometimes we have nests that hatch in those early morning hours right around sunrise, and we can host a public release like what you see here. And I think the photos on here show the joy and excitement that comes with getting to see a baby sea turtle crawl into the water for the first time. And it's a really exciting time to be able to share that magic with others and share the importance of protecting our sea turtles and protecting our oceans. And so with that, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I thought I would also get lightning too, but I'm so excited everyone's here to learn more about sea turtles.
That is great. Thank you for letting us end with some happy people photos and some very cute baby sea turtles. Could you tell us a little bit more about why the sea turtles are coming to nest on windy days?
Sure. So we're not 100% sure, but the thought is that this is a small turtle, and it's mainly, the nests are mainly preyed upon by coyotes and other predators, other mammalian predators that are using visual cues or olfactory smelling cues to find the nest. So by nesting on a windy day, that blows out their tracks, it blows away the smell really quickly, so it would make it harder for those predators to find the nest and ensure more survival for those hatchlings.
Oh, that is so interesting. So do you all look at the weather forecast and the wind to pick your days that you're going to go out to the beach?
So we patrol every single day, April through August, all day long, but I do stack our scheduling based on when there's windy days. We expect to be busy and in the field.
Okay.
Sure.
Wow, amazing. Okay, so we're going to bring everyone back to join you here, Amy. Thank you all for your wonderful presentations. And before we jump into some audience questions, I just wanted to see if any of you wanted to ask each other a question. No. Okay. Let's see. Amy mentioned predators. So one of the questions from our audience, Madlyn, is for you. Can you tell us about what kinds of predators the leatherbacks have in the Solomon Islands that they need to be careful of?
On mute. Thank you. So The main predators that Anita and her team has to deal with is lizards and crabs. They dug the hole down in the beach and then go to the eggs and destroy the eggs. Recently, there were dogs also who destroys the nests. So what they do is they fence, they really clear the bushes 1 meters away from the hatchery, and then every day they have to go and observe the hatcheries. Yeah. So that's how they, to be able to keep the hatchery away from predators away from the hatcheries.
Okay, got it. So there are some questions from our audience about how we know where to release a turtle that was found stranded. So Ken, you talked about flying Tally to Houston, and Shawn, you talked about flying turtles down to Southern California. So does it matter exactly what location they're released at? Do we need to try and figure out where they might have come from, or how is that determined?
So from my perspective, a lot of it's going to be species driven. So, and it's going to be the time of year as well. So when the turtle finishes rehab and is ready for release, there's actually a fairly complex process that needs to take place, where we take a look at the species, the water temperatures, the time of year, and then that sea turtle will be released back at the appropriate venue based on all those factors. So, as far as where the sea turtle originally came from, a lot of times we don't know, but we are going to need to put them someplace that's the correct habitat based on the species and time of year and all those factors. And then ideally we never see them again, right? So we want them to swim off into the ocean and enjoy their life and make lots of baby turtles.
Yeah. Shawn, our audience is curious about what we do know after the turtles are released. So you mentioned some tracking tags, but how long are we able to track them for? Do we know if they're out there for many, many years to come, or where they're going, or what are we able to find out?
Yeah, we wish that we knew where they were many years after we release them, but it's based on the battery life of that satellite tag. And we work cooperatively with wildlife computers here in Washington, and generally the tags that we've been able to deploy on the turtles, the battery life is just about 6 months. So we have 6 months of tracking, and what we found with all of the turtles that we have put a satellite tracker on, that they do continue to, from the release point off of San Diego, they continue to go south into warmer waters off of Baja.
Okay. Amy, there was a question about, so in the trivia earlier on, we talked about how the temperature of the sand affects the sex of the hatchlings. Mm-hmm. So there was a question about, with climate change changing temperatures, does that lead to concerns about the ratio changing over time?
Sure, it's going to vary depending on the nesting beach. So here in Texas, we see some females usually towards the end of the season, and we usually see more males at the earlier part of our season because our temperatures are cooler. But we'll also get things like rain events, which can cool the sand temperatures. And it's actually going to be a kind of critical window during development of when it determines if it's going to be male or female based on that temperature. So if like a storm moves through during that window, that could affect it even if it's later in the season. So right now in Texas, we're still seeing those kind of mixed ratios, but they do tend to be more female biased. And what we can see too with a female bias is that we tend to see populations grow a little bit faster because there's more females. But one of the things we want to watch out for is if males become limiting, then they're not able to mate with the females. And so we don't continue to see that growth.
Okay. Well, I'm interested in hearing from some or all of you just about what has inspired you to study sea turtles or work to help sea turtles. Maybe Heather, would you be willing to jump in there with some thoughts about what drew you to this area of work?
Sure. For me, I studied as a veterinarian, I studied a lot of different species, and with a focus on aquatic species, and sea turtles have just always been my most favorite. They're just really fascinating animals. particularly the leatherbacks. They've been around since the time of the dinosaurs, literally in this current form. And I like to imagine them sort of, like triceratops munching along on the beach while they're coming out of the water. They're just endlessly fascinating to me and really, really just beautiful, cool animals, all the turtles. Not to say that I don't love my marine mammal patients also, but I just think there's so much for us to learn about them. And they're, as reptiles, they're really kind of at the forefront of this climate change issue because they're ectotherms. They depend on ambient temperature to do their thing. And as the ocean's going to warm, it's going to change movement patterns for turtles. As we just heard, it can affect their sex ratios. Certainly, it's going to impact their stranding patterns as they follow warm currents into new areas. And so they're just like a real-time barometer for what's happening out in the ocean. And for that reason, I find them very fascinating.
Who else would like to jump in on this one?
I mean, I can just share a little bit that, so being a pilot, I never thought I would know as much about sea turtles as I've had to learn by transporting them, especially 6 sea turtles. But a couple of things that really stood out to me. The first one is I can remember the first time that we were transporting a load of 6 sea turtles, and the sea turtle was incredibly sick. And I just remember it poking its little snout through the hole in the box, and it got its eye, and it was just taking a look at me. And I don't know, it was a strange connection, but I think we've all felt that before, where we've looked at a sea turtle and it's looked at us, and there's been that connection. It's incredible. And then the other thing that's really struck me is I will relocate turtles inland to facilities, and then we'll also relocate them to the ocean. And it's incredible that there is a difference when we land at an airport near the ocean versus when we land at an airport in the middle of the continent. And when the door of the airplane opens, they know the difference. It's incredible. They must smell it. I don't know. But within seconds of the door opening, there's a difference. And the ones that are inland, they don't care. But when we're close to the ocean, all the boxes, you can just hear them. They just all start going crazy. It's incredible. So they're very, very smart.
Wow. Anyone else?
I think Ken kind of touched on what drew me into sea turtles is I think they're a really great uniting animal. Everyone has a story about a sea turtle. Everyone has a way to relate to them. And it's a great way to engage with others about our oceans, about our marine environment, because it's something everyone can relate to.
I want to agree with what everybody has said, that they just have this kind of ancient calming presence. And it's calming to be around a sea turtle.
Except when you have them sideways and you're trying to put them through the door of an airplane.
Right. That when they're struggling.
Yeah. Other than that, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, Madlyn, there's a question for you about the project in the Solomon Islands, and just hearing more about what kind of response or support the project has received locally, maybe from community leaders or from government or other partners.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's been 13 years working on the Highball Beach. I must say that it has been a positive response for the work because in the places we work with, it's tribally owned by communities, and we make sure that the communities are involved in this, they take the lead on this, and they own the project. So we have local rangers, community local rangers. We have the local people, the tribal owners in the management of these nesting sites. And also it has provided a sort of economic opportunity for the local communities as well. So it has been a positive response to this work. And I've just highlighted, we've just recently sort of encouraged women to be part of the science bit of the work, which is exciting for the communities as well. So it has been a positive receipt of the turtle work in the communities.
That's wonderful. And what does a day in your job look like, Madlyn? Are you out doing trainings, or what is your How do you help advance the project?
I'm based in sort of the town, and when there's a need to have a training, then we travel down to the communities. We call uh, young people, people who are interested to be part of the ranges, and then we train them, and we go out to the field and do the practical work. Yeah, so most of the time it's in the city, but when it's time for training, we go out to the field and work with the communities.
Okay, awesome. Well, Heather and Amy, there's a couple of questions for you that relate to a question I had too. So when you're out there measuring these big turtles, are they just hanging out, chilled the whole time, going about their business nesting and ignoring you? There was a question about whether having the public around talking on the beaches affects them. Just, are they pretty calm through all of that, or what do you observe in them?
So for our nesting turtles, when they start actually laying their eggs, that's when we move in to start measuring them. We give them a lot of space while they're still digging their nest out. And we wait until they're actually laying the eggs because they go into a trance where they don't really notice us. They don't really care. When we give them tags, when we're checking for tags, they don't really flinch or move or do anything. And then once they finish laying, they start covering the nest. They kind of mess up the area. They go immediately back in the water. They don't hang out. They don't do anything else. They don't actually care about any of the noise. As you can imagine, like the beach is already kind of loud with waves crashing and things like that. But what we do, especially if the public is around, is make sure that everybody stays back and behind them, especially out of kind of their field of view. So if you think kind of like a triangle, if the turtle's the tip of the triangle, we want to keep all the people kind of back at the base of the triangle so that she doesn't see a lot of movement. And then once she goes back into the water, we help clear a path. And usually everybody's on the beach is excited to be a part of that and kind of give her a nice like walkway to get in back into that water. It may be different for Heather measuring them when they're coming out of the water actively swimming, but our nesting ladies kind of hold real still and don't care about what we're doing.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I think for me, on the boat, we do our best to keep them really calm. So we keep a seawater hose running over them to keep them cool. We cover their eyes with a soft towel, and we position floats around them so that they are kind of pinned in there and comfortable, and they can't kind of move around too much on the boat, but we're not restraining them either. We're just kind of giving them a comfy spot to hang. And interestingly, it's the males that are the weirdest because I think they've never felt gravity, right? Since the time they left the beach as hatchlings. And so they're often on there. Sometimes they're moving around a lot and just trying to figure out what's going on. And sometimes they get real quiet because I think they, unlike the females who come to nest, these guys haven't felt gravity. So they're always looking around and acting a little confused, but they all do really well. They're very calm leatherbacks as a species compared to some of the more squirrely hard shells.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear about those differences between species. There were a couple of questions about things like how long can they dive and stay underwater, and where and how can they sleep? Can anyone speak to that, and do those kinds of things vary by species at all? Madlyn, you mentioned a super deep diver that you tracked, right? Does anyone know anything about sleeping turtles?
Well, I know when they sleep, they like to get themselves lodged under a rock, which is an issue for trackers. So I know people had asked about trackers earlier, and that was just one point I wanted to make, is that you go through all this effort to get a tracker on a sea turtle, and a sea turtle can knock it off in a matter of minutes. So that can be a challenge. I know for Tally, I think we got about 2 or 3 weeks of tracking data before she knocked the tracker off. So it was frustrating to say goodbye that way, because we were hoping to see 6 months of data.
Most of our hard-shelled sea turtles will rest and sleep usually like on the bottom. like on the ocean bottom or on on a reef if they're like a hawksbill, things like that.
Okay. And then there was some curiosity about how long it takes these turtles to do these long journeys. So when I talked about Yoshi earlier, Yoshi went 25,000 miles in a little over 2 years. But for those of you who are tracking turtles across the ocean or shorter distances, what are you finding in terms of their speed or length of their trip?
I can comment on that for our leatherbacks. We had a stranded leatherback that stranded dead along our coast in California, and that turtle was tagged, and she had a known nesting history from Papua, Indonesia, and she had nested the previous year. So that and 3 years before that. So we learned for her that she sort of met the average estimate of a 3-year remigration interval in between nesting events, and that she did a trans-Pacific migration in 1 year, which is pretty amazing. And she's the only turtle that we've ever had strand on our coast with a known nesting history.
Okay. Yeah, often some of that data. But Madlyn, what have you learned?
Yeah, I think for the ones we tracked in 2022, I think they went for a year, some across the New Zealand, and they came back for nesting after 2 years, 2024. So it's 2 years for them to travel to foraging and then come back for nesting.
Okay. Yeah, so very impressive journeys. Well, I'm going to close with a question for all of you. So we've talked about some of the threats that sea turtles face, all the ways you all are helping them, the fact that they're endangered. What can our viewers do, wherever they might live, to help protect and conserve sea turtles? Amy, can we start with you?
Absolutely. So one of the things is they can help by picking up trash when they go out. Like if you leave your house, pick up a few pieces of trash and make sure it gets into the trash can. And trying your best to use reusable bags, reusable water bottles, all those things will make a big difference.
Right. Madlyn, what suggestions do you have?
I think I go with that as well, especially plastics. Don't throw them in the sea because they resemble jellyfish, which is their food, and they might choke on the plastics if they eat that. So, yeah, I think that's in addition to what Amy said.
Ken, I'm going to turn to you next.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say join our mission. All of us here, all of our organizations work so hard to save sea turtles, and it's a very expensive thing that all of these organizations undertake. So, you can join our mission by helping out these organizations that are putting all this effort into saving sea turtles.
And Ken, there was a question in the chat just about, for people who know pilots who might be interested in getting involved, what do you suggest?
Absolutely. Yeah. So visit our website at www.turtlesfly2.org. We've got a contact form. Fill that out. That will come right into us, and we'll be back in touch. We'd really appreciate that.
All right. Shawn, over to you.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what Amy and Madlyn said. Don't pollute, because sea turtles will get entangled in marine debris. They will eat it. It's not good for them. And then if you come across a stranded sea turtle on your beach, call the highway patrol, and they will know who to contact. And they'll contact us or our other rehab facility, SR3 in Washington, or the Oregon Coast Aquarium. So please call. If you find one, call to get it help.
Yeah, and it was raised earlier that you can't always tell if a sea turtle is alive or not.
You can't tell.
Call no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Heather, bring us home.
Okay, well, I'll just say, I think in addition to being a good coastal steward, which is doing all the things that everyone else mentioned about taking responsibility for living on the coast, for all the input that you have in the environment, picking things up when you see something, pick it up. I think also being aware of the organizations that are involved in stranding response and in conservation programs. So like Seattle Aquarium here, they don't have turtles in their exhibits, but they have a very active stranding response program. They're a really important part of the stranding network on the West Coast and in the Pacific Northwest region. And all up and down our coast of our whole country and many, many other places in the world, there are people who are working doing this work really diligently. So wherever you live, if you live in a coastal environment, figure out who's doing this stuff and get involved.
Well, thank you all so much. To our speakers, you are all wonderful. And I hope you're getting lots of applause in the chat. You deserve it. And thank you for bringing lots of attention and educating us on the importance of these sea turtles and how cool they are. To our audience, if you would like to help us keep these free science talks accessible to all, we hope you'll consider a donation to the Seattle Aquarium. And if you are near the Seattle Aquarium, we invite you to join us this holiday season because we have Diving Santa, and you can find the schedule on our website. Now, our next Lightning Talks episode is coming up on March 12th, and it's going to be all about whales. So it's going to be another great episode. We hope you'll mark your calendars, and we look forward to seeing you then.